I didn't attend my son's wedding. I instead spent the evening with his ex wife. Quick backstory. After graduating high school, my son moved 3 states away for college. At 19, he married a girl he met. I tried convincing him to wait because I personally felt he was too immature. They both dropped out and moved back here to his hometown. At 20, they had their first child, a beautiful little girl. 16 months later, my daughter in law gave birth to their second child, a little boy. After the first baby, my wife and I noticed our daughter in law wasn't happy. We both thought it was postpartum depression related. Just after the second arrived, my son and his wife separated. She would bring the kids over for a visit. It was then that she began unloading on us. I know there's two sides to every story, but considering I know my son, I believed her. I sat my son down numerous times to speak with him regarding his marriage. He refused to take responsibility, blamed her for everything, even when I directly pointed out where he was the sole problem. They got into counseling, and for a year, things were okay on the surface. Our daughter in law filed for divorce. My son, 3 days later, was on Facebook announcing his new girlfriend. A month later, they were engaged. My son had forced his then wife to become a permanent stay at home mom at the birth of their first child. She, of course, had no other family or friends here. She knew no one aside from us. She had nowhere to go with two small children. Unbeknownst to our son, my wife and I helped her financially and got her an apartment. Before the divorce was even finalized, we received a wedding invitation. I made it clear to my son I would not be attending and they would not have my blessings. His mother told him that she would see to it that I would attend. I stayed consistent in my decision. I also asked him not to bring his fiancée around our house out of respect for the mother of his children. The wedding happened. The night before, my wife gave me the final push. I did not attend. Our daughter also did not attend for the same reasons. My wife picked up our grandkids, got them dressed, and attended the wedding. My daughter and I decided to spend the evening with his ex. I couldn't imagine her sitting alone while her kids attended their father's wedding. She was taken aback that I didn't end up attending his wedding. We took her out to distract her mind. I just wanted her to know that she'll always be considered family to us. My daughter also made a joke they can drop the in-law status and just be sisters now. She was very tearfully grateful. I realized just how badly she needed our support, and specifically on that night. The next morning, my son called to tell me how much of a horrible father I am for not attending his wedding. A few days later, he caught wind that I spent the wedding evening with his ex. He said that was the ultimate form of betrayal, and further, myself and his sister would have to earn a relationship with him on his terms only. My grandparents killed my sister. I feel like for most of my life, I've accepted this as normal. My parents died when I was 3, leaving my sister and me in a third world country in Africa where my grandparents stayed as my mother brought us here in her last days and my father disappeared in guilt and shame because the illness that cost them their lives was HIV and AIDS. I'm going to try as hard as possible not to rant about my life or how shit it's been, but my sister, about 10 months younger than me, was tested positive for HIV after the fact I was tested negative. I don't remember much about my parents, but I do remember my mom was very religious. Jewish. She converted in New York and stayed there for long. I was born in Israel. From as young as I can remember, though, I remember the words, "It's God's plan." After my mother died, my grandparents would talk about how brave and peaceful she was as she went. I wouldn't know, but the last I remember, she was vomiting blood and looked like a skeleton. My sister was sick her entire life. Though there was a time where she was able to walk and talk a little, I treasure those memories. But eventually she became too sick to do these things. Debates with family members I've never heard or seen since lie in my memory. Them begging to get her medical help and my grandparents talking about how it's God's will and my mother wouldn't have wanted this. I remember a night so vivid before she passed of her throwing up, choking on, and shitting blood. She looked at me in desperation and I screamed at my grandparents to just take her to the hospital. Something. I tried to call 911, which obviously isn't a thing in our world, but I saw it on TV. I was about 8 or 9. She would have just turned 7 if I remember correctly. She died not long after. It was only as an adult that I learned that if she had proper treatment, she would still be here today. I think about it a lot, about how maybe she's better off because my life turned out horrible. A string of foster homes, no one ever adopting me. Every kind of abuse imaginable. I wonder about how I would have protected her. And now I have finally made peace with the fact that they killed her. It wasn't some tragedy or God's will. She could have been here today. I'm turning 26 and all I wish for in life is some kind of justice for me and my sister. No one cares about her. She's a forgotten soul. Sis, I don't believe in God, but with all of my heart, I hope that you found a place on his lap and will never feel pain again. Am I wrong for slapping my cousin, 9 male, in the face after he kicked my cat and causing a huge family fight? Okay, so this happened last night. I've just woken up to the biggest shit show of my life. please kill me. My cousin Tom usually comes to my house every couple of weeks or so as part of our family meetup, and to say he's a pain in the ass is an understatement. As some context, I hadn't woken up in the greatest of moods as I ate something bad the night before and was suffering from pretty severe food poisoning. Later, after I was done puking my guts up, I decided to relax and watch some Netflix on my Xbox with my kitten, Penelope, who was sitting on the carpet next to my bed to take my mind off it. Fast forward about 30 minutes later, and Tom storms into my room and demands to go use my Xbox as he was bored and had nothing to do. At this point, I'd usually just end it there and allow it, but I was really in the won't take bullshit mood and told him to get out of my room. He wasn't having any of that and promptly walked up to my bed and started screaming shit full volume into my ear, at which point I just told him to f off. He turned around, turned back again, and kicked Penelope into the side of the bed. I got out of my bed and slapped him as hard as I could around the face, whilst telling him to never touch my cat again. He ran out of my room, slammed the door, screaming and crying, and I can faintly hear him speaking to my uncle. I didn't hear a word. My dad came steaming upstairs, stormed into my room, and shouted at me like he never has before. I managed to faintly squeal out the words, "Dad, he kicked Penelope," or something like that, and then he stopped, walked out of my room, and stormed downstairs to the rest of my family, where he starts yelling at what I assume was my uncle. This didn't stop until I passed out of my bed from the stress of the whole thing. Back to now, I have dozens of notifications telling me I'm a horrible person. Family won't speak to me. I have 20 missed calls from unknown callers. News has spread and I frankly can't take it, so I came to vent here instead.
Am I wrong for not taking down our 12-foot skeleton because a neighbor's son is afraid of it? Okay, so we moved to this neighborhood back in April and have been making so many plans for Halloween decorations. I've always wanted the giant skeleton, and if you're not familiar, just search 12-foot skeleton and you'll find it. So I finally ordered one and we put it up September 1st because I was just too excited to wait. People on my street all laughed about it and the teens down the street came to take pictures. And my next door neighbor is even gonna make stuff to go with it. Unfortunately, there's younger kids who are a few streets away who see it on their walk home from school. And one even cried and got scared of it. So the mom approached me and asked if I could possibly take it down because it's a little too scary. But in my opinion, it's not scary. It's actually silly, and I don't like scary Halloween. I like silly Halloween. I don't even listen to true crime podcasts like every other basic girl these days. So I asked the mom if putting a silly hat on it would work. Am I wrong for not taking down our 12-foot skeleton because a neighbor's son is afraid of it? She said no and again asked for me to take it down. I told her I've wanted one of these forever and I'm not taking it down. I suggested she find a different way to the bus stop and she made a face and said, "Really?" I told her I spent $300 on this bad boy and I do want to enjoy it. And not to sound too dramatic, but in this world on fire, something as stupid as a 12-foot skeleton brings me joy. That's when she looked behind me smirking, saying $300 shouldn't have broke the bank. But judging by the house you chose, I should have realized that money was the issue. Then she said, but it costs nothing to be kind to a little boy who's just scared. I'm not particularly clever or quick, so I just said okay, thanks for the suggestion, and went back to weeding. Then she stood there taking a picture, probably to blast me on social media or her mommy groups. Now whenever she walks by, she scowls and takes another picture. Am I wrong? Am I wrong for getting a hotel room for my spouse, me and my daughter, instead of forcing her to share a bed with her cousins? I normally get along really well with my in-laws and find my mother-in-law to be awesome. My sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, everyone are just great people. We were headed out that way to go spend some time before school starts again, and it lined up with when 2 other families were coming into town. This meant the bedrooms we'd normally stay in were packed. And while my husband and I had a room and a bed, our daughter Cass 8 didn't have a spot to herself. So my sister-in-law suggested that she just double up with her cousins. Cass was not happy about this and said she didn't want to. She was pretty adamant about it and has never shared a bed with anyone, and I wasn't about to force her. I figured that us leaving to get a hotel a few miles away would free up some space and make it easier on everyone. They were all taken aback by this and kept telling me it made no sense and was spending money when they didn't need to. Am I wrong for getting a hotel for my spouse, me and my daughter, instead of forcing her to share a bed with cousins? I said I know it's fine, but that Cass isn't comfortable and I'm not going to force her. They kept pushing back, saying that all girls share beds and more stuff on how girls are used to seeing each other change. They emphasized that it's normal and it's weird for us to be upset about it, and they also asked why was she so uncomfortable. And one of them even asked her in a way that's meant to guilt, like, why does this even make you uncomfortable? Don't you want to spend time with your cousins? We ended up getting the hotel room, but they brought it up every day and kept almost making fun of my daughter, indicating that she's both weird and spoiled. I've never in my life shared a bed with anyone other than someone I'm romantic with. Even as a kid, I'd never get a shared bed. I didn't even change around girls except for in gym class. And generally, even in gym, I'd change in the restroom because it felt really inappropriate. I didn't think it was weird, but the entire family, the women at least, do.
My wife, 30 female, got an abortion after she found out that I, 30 male, cheated. I need advice urgently. Why does he need advice, bro? Like, you cheated on her. You need people to tell you not to stick your dingling into things that are not your wife? Like, hello? My wife, 30 female, and I, 30 male, have been together for close to 7 years. She was the most important thing in my life. She is/was 4 months pregnant with our first child. These first 3 months of pregnancy have been hell. She has been extremely sick, and she has had horrible morning sickness, mood swings to a point where I had started questioning whether I married the right person. So about a month ago, we had a team building dinner at my office where there was plenty of alcohol. After the team building, one of my coworkers, 32 male, invited 5 of us to his place. I got very drunk and made the worst mistake of my life. I slept with one of my coworkers, Lucy, 28 female. I knew immediately that I had made a mistake, and so in the morning, I told her that it was a mistake and that I loved my wife. Things have been quiet from that time. The relationship with my wife had gotten better. The 4th month of pregnancy had been great. She is back to the happy person she was before. Everything changed on Tuesday this week when my wife asked me whether it's true that I slept with Lucy. I admitted immediately and asked who told her. Apparently, Lucy got in touch with my wife and told her everything. I tried to ask for forgiveness, but my wife basically told me that she is not interested in anything I have to say, that she needs time and not to talk to her. Yesterday, she went to work as usual, and I thought maybe she would forgive me. Today, when I woke up to go to work, she was not home. I got worried because she was not picking up my calls, and so I took time off today. About an hour ago, her best friend brought her home and immediately left. I tried to ask her what's wrong, and she just said that I should ask my wife, which I did. So, she basically told me that she is done with our marriage. I need to look for a place to live for the next year as we apply for divorce. I asked what about our child. She said that she will give me the address of the hospital she went to so that I can get it. I tried asking more questions, but she told me that she is tired and in pain and to leave her alone, that I should tell her when I plan on moving out. I feel so sick. How do I solve this, please? I know that I made a mistake by sleeping with my coworker, but I don't think I can live without my wife. Is there any way I can fix this? It hurts because I feel like she aborted the child to get back at me. She didn't want children, but I managed to convince her to get one.
Am I wrong for telling my mom she doesn't understand because she's never been pregnant? I, 28 male, was adopted by my mother. She was incapable of conceiving a child after having a hysterectomy due to a horrible accident. She's grieved her uterus and biological children, so it's not a subject we bring up. Well, my fiance is 27 weeks pregnant and has been diagnosed with hyperemesis gravidarum. We finally got a diagnosis after no one was listening to us, and we're finally trying to get her body back on track. But some things are just too much, and after a little research, it seems like it's just very severe throwing up and nausea during pregnancy. So we had my mother and father over for dinner yesterday, and my mom wanted to teach my fiance how to cook an authentic Italian meal. After many apologies, my fiance said she just couldn't take the smell and went upstairs. My mother is short-tempered, she's old-fashioned Italian and very strict and judgmental. Am I wrong for telling my mom she doesn't understand because she's never been pregnant? My mother wanted to teach my fiance how to cook an authentic Italian meal. After many apologies, my fiance said she couldn't take the smell and went upstairs. My mother is short-tempered, old-fashioned Italian and very strict and judgmental. So she began to go on and on saying this is not how you treat a guest, especially an in-law, and how she'd driven 40 minutes to come and do this. I tried to explain the situation and she insisted my fiance was just being overdramatic. That's when I said you wouldn't understand because you've never been pregnant. That's when my mom bursted into tears and they left. My dad called me and said he agreed, but I still need to apologize. My mom had locked herself in the bedroom for the night, crying, and of course I feel bad for my mom, but she doesn't understand. Top comment says your mom was out of line and needed to be set straight, but you didn't set her straight, you went for the jugular. I don't even like my mom, and I wouldn't say that.